The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
Station atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Monday, July 16th, Tuesday, July 17th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. And this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night to kick off your week. I am your host, Dave Scott, broadcasting to you live from the Great White North, on top of the mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong nightly on the SOR radio network and Deep Talk Radio, and we say thank you so much for tuning us in tonight. You're looking for our archives, go to our YouTube channel. They are free. YouTube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. And our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we got a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our store, read up on the encounter online, and so much more. We're kicking off a brand new week here on the mighty SOR. As the sun is shining, the temperatures are warm here in central British Columbia. Almost broke a sweat today. That's difficult at this time of year. Almost breaking a sweat. But nonetheless, we're right here to broadcast live to you, because with the world of UFOs turned upside down and people are scrambling for the truth as to what is really going on, the forgotten experiencers are still having their issues when it comes to contact and abduction. It's weird how they've kind of become the forgotten byproduct of the UFO world as everyone focuses on MUFON and To the Stars. But nonetheless, the investigations need to be done, and the research into what's going on has to continue. Lesley Mitchell-Clarke is back on Spaced Out Radio. She is a very good friend of this show. Lesley owns Lightwork Hypnosis in Toronto, Ontario, and has helped people understand their abductions and contact through hypnotherapy. Lesley also turns over files and works closely with MUFON and MUFON Canada. She will be with us in a couple of seconds, but at the bottom of hour number 3, we have Everett Themer coming in with the encounter on the highlights of the strange news of the day. Lesley Mitchell-Clarke, it's always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio. How are you doing, my friend?
Oh, Diamond Dave, I am so glad to be back. It's great to hear your voice. And, of course, I'm always thrilled to be on because your listeners are, of the most astute and intelligent variety. And not only is it a pleasure to talk to you, but I'm always delighted and sometimes challenged by the questions and comments that your listeners have.
They are a brilliant bunch. They are people who keep me on my toes every single night. But you know what? God bless them. God bless them for helping this show get so popular. It's all because of them. It is all because of them. So I literally just kind of kick back, man the captain's chair, and make sure that none of these Boston Red Sox fans get in because I'm a Yankee fan, right? So
of course.
So, we got to have some fun there. And I know that there's a New York Mets fan in our Spreaker chat, BTO, and he always, I always got to give him a hard time because nobody likes that other New York team.
Well, Mets fans, they love to suffer. It's just one of those things. It's a...
Yes. Still dreaming of the days of Doc Gooden and Darryl Strawberry when they were on cocaine with Lenny Dykstra, man in center field at that time. Son of a gun.
Oh, dear.
Excellent.
Dear.
I know.
Well,
I just can't like the Blue Jays.
It's been hard for me to develop an emotional connection with them. I don't know. I guess just a Yankee fan is a Yankee fan is a Yankee fan. But, I still enjoy going to the game. The game is a great thing. Baseball will save us. And it's a great, from some great material. But anyway, I digress. So, Dave, it's a little warm out there. We are boiling out here in the East Coast. It is, I don't know, I guess, it's been well over 30 for just, it feels like forever right now. So there you go.
You know what? I absolutely love the warmer temperatures. And, you can't be too upset with everything when just 17 weeks until winter. And the cold and everything, but that's okay. That is very much okay.
I'll be bitching up a storm before you know it. I'll be bitching up a storm about the cold weather for sure. That's it. That's the thing. But we don't have much summer, and I think I've traveled all over. I think Canadians squeeze more pleasure out of the summer and fair weather than any other group of people in the world. I really do. I mean, it gets up to be, about 10 and they're out there in the shorts and the white legs are visible. They can be seen from, the space shuttle. So it's, but I love Canadians. They're so optimistic and they just live in the moment and they squeeze every last drop of that, summertime experience.
Oh,
I
yes.
think.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I got to admit, I've been teaching my little guy how to swim. And I'm not the best swimmer, but been taking him to the local Spawn Resort here because our town doesn't have a community pool. And we've been going like 4 or 5 times a week. And I'm telling you, I am worn out. I had forgotten how tiring swimming can be. But
it's exhausting.
Nonetheless, I'm burning my fat off. Finally burning my winter fat off, but that's okay. Very much.
Well, Dave, I got
to...
it. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go right ahead.
I was just going to say that there are few exercises that are so systemic other than swimming. I mean, it uses practically every muscle of the body. And also, you don't want to injure your back doing something crazy, 500 push-ups with weights or whatever. This is a really good way to get in shape there. So,
Isn't
I'm going to tell you one show business story. It just reminded me of before we get into it. So, reminding me of swimming. So, Groucho Marx took his little daughter Melinda over to the Beverly Hills Hotel, and so she could have a swim on a hot day. And he was probably having a business meeting or whatever. And so, his daughter's Melinda's in the pool there. And so the manager, the very snotty manager, comes over to Groucho Marx and says, oh, I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Marx, but the pool is restricted. No Jews allowed in the pool. And so Groucho Marx says, well, my daughter Melinda's only half Jewish. Can she go in up to her waist?
Oh, my goodness. Wow. He went there,
Anyway,
eh?
well, that's it. People forget how kind of right-wing California is. They're always astonished that this conservative, alt-right thing is percolating over there. But remember, part of California is below the Mason-Dixon line. I mean, you get into Orange County, and that's behind the Orange Curtain. So, there is always a battle about racism and progressiveness and all these things. California is a very conflicted place, to say the least.
Yes. A lot of strange happening in California, and it isn't just the Lost Boys bringing back vampirism. But nonetheless, we should probably get going on the show here. Otherwise, you and I could waste
Dave.
a lot of time tonight. A lot of time.
We don't want to sound like NPR.
No.
Dave, how are you feeling today?
Oh,
I had my cup of coffee, and let's not get anybody too excited.
I'm just sipping a glass of water here. Bright, clean, filtered water from the sink. Because we can still drink water from the sink up here.
Of course.
So nonetheless, Lesley, I want to reintroduce you to my audience because our audience is always changing. You are someone who has been involved with the field of ufology and hypnotherapy and helping people who have had contact or abductions for a while. How did you get started in that?
Well, it's kind of a two-pronged situation. I have always been interested in the ET experience, just obsessed with it, kind of. And there were reasons for that, since I did recover some of my own memories through processes. But I always was fascinated with that. And I reached a certain point in my career where I was doing an awful lot of what we call metaphysical hypnosis, which of course includes past life regressions and the interlife regression. And some hypnotherapists also do something called entity release or energy release. I don't really do that very often, if at all. But anyway, I was doing a lot of that kind of practice. And people started coming to me who were being regressed to lifetimes on other planets. So through the past life regression process, I started hearing about lifetimes where these individuals were in, physically similar bodies to ours, but they were in other planetary systems. And that to me was, of course, fascinating. And, believing as I do in the concept of multiple lifetimes, it certainly seemed, believable within that framework. And of course, I did consult with my mentor, Dr. Georgina Cannon, and she said, well, yes, that has happened to me. It happens more often than you would think, where we are just doing a regular past life regression and, this kind of thing comes up. So I think at that point, maybe the universe just sort of stepped in, and I began getting calls from individuals who believed they were experiencers. And to help that along, I had a radio program which I had developed with a client of mine who was an experiencer, called Contact Radio. And we were doing that regularly for 4 years. And now it's a YouTube series. We just put up one show every 2 weeks, but it's hopefully a quality show. So anyway, I think that was helping things along. And I began to just be known for working with experiencers. And of course, once I got to work with a few of these dear people, I became very emotionally involved with assisting them to, release any trauma, to reintegrate themselves back into life, and also integrate the experiences themselves in a conscious way. So the work was clear. Many of the people, Dave, who come to me as experiencers, well, I shouldn't say many, but a substantial amount of these people are not really very functional in the scope of their, terrestrial third density life here. They've been damaged. Some type of mechanism has been, altered, and they have a lot of trouble on many levels, socializing and, problems with paranoia, as you would understand. So there was a lot of work to be done. And eventually I began working with the MUFON organization, and I had to go through a process. Actually, I am a member of what they call the Experiencer Research Project, which is under the directorship of Kathleen Marden. And I know you know Kathy. She is the niece of Betty Hill, and very well known as an author, and she herself is a hypnotherapist. So I went through the process of being vetted by MUFON, and then they began directing the people that reported experiences to them to me if they felt it was warranted. So now I just, I have an awful lot of people who come to me either through MUFON or just simply from referral or having my name out there in the community as one of the very, very few hypnotherapists who does this kind of work.
Why do you think it's important to focus on the experiences people are having? Because so few are actually finding the inner strength to come out and make this happen, Lesley.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think experiencers, they carry an awful lot of trauma on the subconscious level, and they are very fearful. And they do come from all walks of life, as you well know. I mean, I've had, judges, lawyers, teachers, professors, guys that go into guys that work for not Con Ed, you know what I mean. I have had people of all walks of life who are experiencers, but they seem to share one big thing in common. These people, I believe, are all born with high levels of PSI, of psychic ability. Now, whether this is something that is predetermined before birth, I'm not sure if I can speak to that question with any any definiteness. But certainly, if you ask the right questions and you really get into the lives of the people that come forward with their experiencers, they are very special people. And most of the time, Dave, 90% of the time, I would say, the experiences are very positive. And, sometimes the bits of conscious memories that people have they're confusing and maybe disturbing. And so once we get in there and, the person is allowed to experience the memory, and, process any, disturbing parts of it, it's extremely relieving. And most of the fears are simply what I would call a distortion of the conscious recollection.
You mentioned something very interesting in regards to the experiences people are having and that they are sound and positive. We're going to be beating a lot of horses tonight, and I don't mean that in a PETA, protest spaced out radio kind of way,
Right.
But you bring up a fascinating point, because own personal statistics on that kind of match up with the free experiencers, Dr. Edgar Mitchell's, or the late Dr. Mitchell's group, Free. And I find it very funny, okay, as we're going to be jumping all over the place tonight, but I find it extremely funny that we have these statistics, your statistics of showing the positivity of the ET contact, yet when it comes to Tom DeLonge, Mr. DeLonge, who before announcing the To the Stars Academy was trying to buy the statistics from Free, and yet he comes out late last year on Joe Rogan's show and says, we know all aliens are evil. We need to put nuclear weapons in space. We need to protect this planet. And people are not having a good time with these aliens who are abducting people against their will and basically saying everything is bad. To me, that sounds opposite an agenda from the To the Stars Academy.
Well, it does sound opposite, and it's also ridiculous. I mean, look at us. If any highly evolved beings wanted to do anything with us as far as removing us to another planet or anything that they wanted to do, if they had a dark agenda, they could do it. It's, this is, I think what's really interesting is the refusal to look at the data. Now, the data, the experiencer research data, and I work with Free also, I do. They have also referred individuals to me. But the data that they're finding, and of course, this information comes from a lot of different places, a lot of different sources. But I believe that in the original out front encounter that occurred at the time of the Roswell crash, and the recovered aliens, the living aliens, and they were of the Zeta A's, the Zeta Reticuli, and a deal was made under the auspices of Harry Truman, and Grant Cameron can go into a lot of detail about how this actually occurred, but basically this was the beginning of the Majestic Project and the reverse engineering of technology, and also an agreement that the government, the United States government, I guess speaking for the world, I assume, said, well, okay, we're gonna. If you need to take some DNA information, we know you're having trouble. You can abduct X amount of humans, but they can't remember it, and we'll look the other way, and you can actually do this. Well, that was a agreement that was time dated, and it was over in, it wasn't 2000, but really kind of close to that. So the only beings that were involved in the, as I understand it, in the aggressive, DNA, sperm, ova, genetic research were the Zeta A's. And this is now something that is stopped. It's over. It's done. So those types of against the will types of abductions are just not happening. Occasionally, it's important to remember, Dave, that not everybody who comes to see me, or not everybody who believes that they have had an extraterrestrial experience has had one. I'm in that area of mental health care where, I have to be very cautious that, I'm not dealing with someone who is having mental illness. And personally, I saw an experiencer on YouTube who was describing some reptilian alien encounter that was like sexual and involved like sexual torture. It was obviously, to me, some type of a delusion. And, because I have never encountered any experience with all these experiencers that I've worked with. I have never regressed anyone to an incident that was sexual in the way that we think of it. Do you know what I mean, Dave? And I'm not talking about an emotionless extraction of genetic material. These things have happened. We know these things have happened. But a kind of a sexual encounter, I have never, and if someone does recount something like that, more than likely they have created the image of a being to disguise who really did those things to them in their physical life. That does happen. Real experiences and the possibility of ET encounters can become mixed up.
You know what? I can see where it can get mixed up, and a lot of people will say, that they are just trying to find answers. And let's face it, some people who are maybe a little bit delusional, maybe a little bit suffering from psychiatric problems, they may feel that this is the route they take to try and find some normalcy, or maybe a 15 minutes of fame or something along those lines. I can see where that is the great possibility. How do you tell then whether or not somebody is suffering from some mental deficiency or whether they're telling you the truth?
Well, that's a really excellent question, Dave. And I should say that any properly trained guild member, board certified hypnotherapist like myself, we are mandated. I'm actually not allowed by law to work with anyone who has had a diagnosed mental illness. Now, the term mental illness is only slightly ambiguous. It really doesn't include things that you would call neuroses, like maybe depression or anxiety, or it doesn't really include that. I think what we're really talking about would be individuals with schizophrenia or psychosis or a borderline personality disorder, or dissociative disorder of some sort. So fortunately for me, in the States, I was a psychiatric nurse all through university. So I'm pretty, and I'm pretty good at assessing these things. And now, bear in mind, I can't diagnose someone, but I have to figure out where they're at. And they're not always truthful about their mental health history. So the first thing I do, Dave, is usually someone will contact me on the phone. And I tell you, most of the time, I will have a sense of that person's connection to reality or their mental health. So most of the time after a phone call, I can determine that. Now, if I'm still not sure, about their mental health condition, then I will have probably an in-person consultation where I'll get them to come over to the clinic and I'll see them and I'll get them to fill out, my my detailed form. And by that time, I'll be able to find out usually if they're on any, psychiatric meds, if they have a psychiatric history. So by that time, after observing them and getting all those details, I will have a really good idea if there is a mental health issue. And I always err on the side of caution, Dave. I always, and if someone is really ill and they're having psychotic delusions or delusions of any kind, I can't help. There's nothing I can do to help them. They need immediate medical intervention.
How often does that happen, though? How often do you get somebody who has a psychiatric deficiency over somebody who's having real contact? Let's say out of every 10 people.
Boy, it's a very small number, Dave. It's a very small number. I tell you, when, I see patients at several different places, and when I have a chance to talk to someone on the phone or see them in person, I would say maybe 1 out of 10, maybe. But, and you have to remember, people that have experiences can be very eccentric, and that doesn't make them mentally ill. They may have eccentric behaviors. They invariably have various anxiety issues that I can help with. Invariably, they have sleep issues. The sleep issues are terrible. These poor people just don't sleep. And so there are many things that tell me that they're having genuine experiences. And, so sometimes by the time I see someone, they're so frustrated and sad and they feel like they're alone. I think the happiest that I see these people is after they come out of their experience, and I just let them know that they're in a very special community of wonderful, smart, normal people. And they begin to feel, oh my God, I'm not alone. I'm not, and that's huge.
Do you notice patterns? Like if you had 10 people who were experiencers, are you noticing any similar patterns in between people who are claiming these abductions or contact?
Oh, they have all kinds of similarities. There are textbook similarities. First of all, I think that most experiencers do not have these random events where they're, where they have just one episode of missing time. I think that most experiencers have been having experiences since they were small children. It's very unusual to find someone who has had one random event. So, and I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but I think it's quite unusual because invariably, when we get in there and, first I should probably say the way I work with an experiencer when they come to me is they usually have a mix of conscious memories and just feelings and maybe vivid dreams. And maybe they have a single event where they think they remember something weird, a light coming in through the window. So it's kind of like that. So what I usually do is I go through the regression process, which is really all about making somebody feel safe and relaxed. There's nothing mysterious about it. It's 5,000 years old, that technique. So I get people relaxed and feeling safe. And invariably, we can get them into a trance where the lifetime that is most important for them tends to pop up first. And usually it's the life where they've been having, conscious memories. But I don't really, unless I direct the client to go somewhere specific, I kind of tend to let it flow. And but if they wish, if the client wishes, we will go investigate first the incident where they have partial memory. And then, after that experience, I will generally take them back to their first experience with the, whatever they call them, the other beings, the angels, the friends, whatever term they're using. And then we start working our way forward from that.
There have been a lot of people in the field of ufology who are highly critical of people like you.
Mm-hmm. Well, go ahead, Dave.
Well, I was just going to say, how do you deal with the criticism of people saying that clinical hypnotherapists are really people implanting ideas into experiencers' brains?
Well, I would say anyone who does regression work or any hypnosis of any sort, our prime directive is to stay out of the equation. And I would really invite any psychiatrist or anyone, if they wished, to watch me do a complete process. You never lead the witness. The questions are always as neutral as possible. It's there is a technique of going in and stimulating. When we do an induction for the purpose of regression, we do things that stimulate the recall of memories purposefully. So generally, they're fairly easy to get to. But it's everybody's an individual, and also I should point out that people process memories differently. Some people are extremely visual, and they will give me a detail of a room or a space, down to the, cubic meter. I mean, they're incredibly detailed and incredibly visual. Some people are all about feelings. I feel this way. I feel that person. Some people are all about that. Some people are kinesthetic. They feel stuff or smell stuff. So everybody processes information a little bit differently. And part of what I have to do when someone comes to me is I have to figure out how they think. By just talking to them, I have to figure out what kind of a processor they are. And I also have to figure out what kind of language would be most effective, whether I should use a more permissive approach or a more directed approach. So all of these things help me to get the person who's come to see me into a nice trance and very relaxed and very safe.
Is it maybe the criticism that you take because of the fact that I look at clinical hypnotherapists, okay, outside of yourself, Lesley, okay, because I know you are highly trained in this, and you were a psychiatric nurse, and you have a history with dealing with mental disease patients or mental illness patients, pardon me.
Yes.
And so I trust your opinion. But I look at a lot of this where I see so many clinical hypnotherapists or hypnotherapists, jumping into the UFO field now. And I also look at it in almost the same way as when the paranormal field got hit, where everybody and their dog all of a sudden was a demonologist. Is it? And there's no training for that. I mean, you just make the claim that, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to learn a bit of hypnosis, and boom, I'm a hypnotherapist now. Same as demonology, and I look at that and I think, where's your training? Where is your schooling? Where is the professionalism that you need to be shown? And is it those people who are bringing down the practice?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's fringe people. There's always going to be fringe people. And, thankfully, luckily, we have a very strong, stringent, set of requirements here in Ontario, and actually throughout Canada, with regards to what hypnotherapists have to do and learn. And then we have exams, and we have to update our credential. And, there's, in our situation, there's a lot involved. But I think in the States, it's pretty freestyle. I think that even some states have outlawed the practice of hypnosis, because these alt-right, these Christian states, see it as perhaps some type of fringe metaphysical evil thing. But, there are some states where it's not even legal. But I believe in the U.S. it is a kind of a state-by-state deal. And yes, there are fringe people. And I just wish that, there are, if anyone wants to find a qualified, competent, experienced hypnotherapist and is an experiencer, all they really need to do is get in touch with their local MUFON chapter. There are experienced people like me who've been through the same process with Kathy Martin, all over the place. We have them in Canada. We have a couple new people in BC, so we can find somebody for you. It's even we can find somebody for you. So please, go to the source where you're going to find experience in this particular area.
So how does one tell whether or not somebody is, qualified for this or not? Because there is a lot of people, much like psychics, much like the demonologists, who are taking advantage of people, implanting thoughts into their brains, and that really is not kosher for what a person may have already gone into. I look at it almost as a violation of the mind.
Well, yes, if someone isn't trained. I tell you, I personally, I have a diploma from the school where I studied, the Ontario Center Hypnosis. I have a diploma. I have a big membership with the National Guild of Hypnotherapists. I have I have my certifications in pediatric hypnosis, medical. I have all these things up on my wall, right? So, and they're all a matter of public record, so people can, and it's on my website. I think just do your research. You can tell. You can absolutely tell if someone is qualified. And if you have any questions about it, certainly you can call your MUFON chapter, MUFON, or call me, and I'll help you find someone. And you can always reach me at Lesley, Lesley, at lightworkhypnosis.com. And anyone that would like to talk to me or just even run something by me to see if maybe I think there's reason to go further, that it might be an experience, please just get in touch, and I will be happy to chat with you or refer you to someone in your area who can work with you.
So the big idea then is to have somebody such as yourself who is a qualified therapist as well.
I think that's the best plan, because, part of what I do is really just straight ahead therapy, part of what I do, because I'm working with the whole person. I'm a therapist who uses hypnosis, and I happen to be particularly focused and trained in regression. And I don't know, I think it's just because I can really put people to sleep. I think it's the voice. I don't know. They call me the Velvet Hammer. I can get anybody in.
Well, I mean, hey, any way you want to look at it, my goodness. But, I think it's important, though, because I just can't believe how many hypnotherapists are jumping out of the woodworks. I mean, I would say every week on LinkedIn, I probably get added by 2 or 3, maybe 5 hypnotherapists.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where are all these people? Like, where are they coming from?
I don't know where they're coming from. Now, the way I understand it, here in, at least according to the international rules that we follow, as a member of the International Guild of Hypnotists, if you have no other previous medical or psychiatric or training, and you take a hypnosis certification course, which in Ontario, the course takes about 3 months, I think. It's not a long course, but it is a very thorough training. Anyway, if you do that and you pass your exam and you're bona fide, then you may call yourself a consulting hypnotist. Now, if you have a previous medical history, it sounds terrible. If you have previous experience in another compatible therapy, like even if you're a massage therapist or a kinesiologist, then you can call yourself a hypnotherapist. So that is the distinction. So first of all, if anybody calls himself a hypnotist, just that, I would probably not work with them.
Mm-hmm.
Because that indicates that they have no other training. You don't know if they've been to university. You don't know. All you know is they did some kind of 3-month basic hypnosis course and passed a test, if that. So the consulting hypnotist would be, the most neophyte level of accreditation. Now, I am a master certified hypnotherapist. I finished my master's level this past year. So there you go.
Well, I appreciate it. And that's why we deal with you. We don't mess around with them other kind of hypnos. We just deal with one around here. I want to ask you a couple of questions here, and in hour number 2 as well, we're going to get more into the abduction side of things and MUFON as well. But when you are part of MUFON Canada or MUFON?
MUFON in general, actually, I am, if someone in New York City and the East Coast needs to see someone, I am the person in the experience or research project that they would be directed to see. But I am most closely affiliated with MUFON Canada because, these are our guys. And very recently, just a couple of weeks ago, we had a wonderful convention here, and next year you're going to be there, Dave, called Alien Cosmic Expo, and that was actually organized and put on by MUFON Canada, and they did a fine job. I got to tell you, it was wonderful. We had Linda Moulton Howe there, and Grant Cameron, of course, and Richard Dolan. And I think it was actually the last appearance of our man Stanton Friedman,
Yes.
the original Jersey boy, I call him. So he's he's retired, and I got to spend some time with him in the last in his last convention. I was actually hosting along with my partner in the on Contact TV, Wes Roberts. We were hosting what they called Experiencer Day, which was actually pretty cool because I know you talked about how experiencers are not being, acknowledged, and they're just, peripheral sort of people. Well, I think the reality is that the experiencers are bringing about disclosure. I don't think it's going to happen in the way that we would all like it to happen with a beautiful ship and some great people like Michael Rennie, coming out of the White House lawn. They're not going to land on this White House lawn, I'll tell you that. No way. I think disclosure is going to be a more personal, more grassroots type of event. And so I was able to host Linda Moulton Howe and Kathy Martin and some other wonderful folks. And so next year, Dave, you will be there. You must.
Well, that is the plan. I know Grant Cameron was pushing very hard after watching me speak in San Francisco.
Well, me too. Don't forget.
Yes, and
I
you
was
too. And I know Stu Bundy and I had a very good talk about that. About he said, "Well, Dave, if I can't get you in this year, I'll get you in next year." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm fine with that." I said, he goes, "But can we still, bring a bunch of guests on Spaced Out Radio because you're our Canadian show?" And I'm like, "Absolutely."
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem supporting that, but
oh, fantastic.
You have to. I mean, there's a little bit of back scratching going on here. And as long as I don't have to go to a Blue Jays game that, and cheer for the Jays or the Maple Leafs, I'm fine. I'll just hold my breath.
Stu might make you play golf. I don't know.
I know.
You might end up on the golf course or even worse, playing virtual golf. That's it.
Yes. But nonetheless, when it comes to you giving a testimony or a report to MUFON, how does that work?
Yes. Well, first of all, again, MUFON is they're very detail oriented. And the field investigator, and I think he's also a provincial manager. But Ryan Stacy is the guy that I am most often dealing with. Sometimes Dave Palachek, sometimes Stu Bundy, but someone reports something to MUFON, and they do quite a screening of the event. I mean, extensive interviewing, and if they decide that the witness is viable and that and credible, and that they want to proceed further with it, then they suggest, and that is if the person has an issue of repressed memories or wants to go further with that kind of line, then they will direct that individual to me. And people literally come from all over Canada to see me. Actually there were 3 or 4 people from your neck of the woods in Kelowna who wanted to see me, and I just wasn't able to arrange, to go there because there really isn't any, particular financial support from MUFON from these various things that I do. But at any rate, that's kind of how it works. So MUFON does a lot of the screening process before the person ever comes to me. And by the time I speak to the person, I've never really had an issue where anyone that MUFON referred to me was not of sound mind to proceed with the process.
That has to make you feel comfortable that they are getting pre-screened, so that way you don't really have to deal with them. But when you are putting somebody under to talk about their regressions, explain for our audience who may not know or may have been experiencers but have never gone through this, explain what you go through with somebody on your couch or in your chair or wherever they may be.
All right. Well, I usually, when someone is an experiencer and they get in touch with me, I have 2 places where I see clients. I am a associate at the Bloom Center for Hypnotherapy, which is in the Danforth, and that's more of a clinic atmosphere. And then I have my own treatment center at my home space. So my whole objective is to make the experiencer comfortable. Some people, by the time they call me, they've already been through so many psychiatrists and this, that, and the other that they don't want to go to a psychiatric office. You know what I mean? They feel more comfortable coming to my home. So from the first contact, you know, I want to make the person feel comfortable and safe. And that is essential, because you have to have a trust thing. They have to be able to trust you to allow themselves to relax, basically, right? So there has to be a trust vibe going on. So after, someone tells me, their story and we know what we're doing, I get them very, very relaxed. And I use what we would call progressive relaxation. I speak to the muscles and I get them relaxed from really the top of their heads to the tips of their toes. And it's incredibly pleasant. And the reason that this deep relaxation is necessary is that it has to do with the medical inciting of the alpha state. So as soon as the body begins to relax, and I mean the muscles let go, and I'm watching the client all the time for papillary skin response, muscle slackness, so I know when people are going into trance. So when someone goes into trance, the brain is in the alpha state, which are big, undular waves. And so what I need to do is I need to keep the client in the alpha state, in a state of deep relaxation, without allowing them to go into the delta state, which would be what you would call sleep. So I have to keep them in a certain zone. We actually call hypnosis relaxed awareness, because if I'm doing my job correctly, if the process is working as it should, the body is completely relaxed. Sometimes it feels heavy, sometimes it feels light, but yet the mind is alert. And I can talk to the person in hypnosis and they can speak to me. And it has been discovered with the real-time mapping of the brain, and this is very interesting for your listeners to hear. It has been discovered medically, now that we have the technology to really look at this, that when an individual reaches a certain level of relaxation, that invisible curtain or membrane or whatever you wish to call it, that is between the conscious and subconscious mind, in other words, between our conscious mind and where our memories are stored, that membrane just dissolves and disappears. And I put you in control of your mind at every level. I'm not doing anything to your mind except showing you that you have complete control. And that's kind of how it works. And usually, if I'm doing a past life regression, that can be a longish process. That would be maybe 2 hours, depending on how quickly the client processes, and also, how many lifetimes their spirit guide or they indicate that they want to visit. I never do more than 3, but more commonly it would be 2. Because we do ask a lot of detailed questions when people are in their lifetimes. So, of that amount of time, that's a long time for someone to stay in trance. I don't like to keep anybody in trance longer than an hour, personally. I really don't. I think they get too relaxed and it's too hard. They get too spaced out. It's too hard for them to integrate back into, physical life. I don't want them to go out there driving, in that state either. So I don't keep people in deep hypnosis more than an hour.
What kind of questions do you ask? Are you asking trigger type questions, or are you asking questions that are leading towards them getting to their experience? And before you answer that, I just want to say we got about 2 minutes before we got to go to break.
Okay. I would just say that every question that I ask must be neutral. I must not lead the patient. I must imply nothing. And sometimes I will just say, and then what happens? And then what's the next major event? You know, I don't color it. I don't influence it. It is pure, neutral questions that are designed by their neutrality to allow the client to retrieve memories in their own way at their own rate.
How long does it take to finally get to the goods, though? Because I don't know about you. My nerves couldn't handle the fact of, you know, having to wait like 12 sessions to get to the real good stuff.
Oh, no, that's not what happens at all. There's good stuff every time, but really, no, there is, we'll have to get into this a little bit later, but generally on the first time someone comes to see me, you know, they have the realization that they've been an experiencer their entire life, and they've recalled something as a small child, and they've filled in details about missing time from a contemporary episode. So it's always astonishing. It's always mind-bending. You know, if someone is a good hypnotic subject, you know, you can certainly allow them to go to some really amazing places. And, you know, of course, I always have to make them feel safe. And I should mention, if there's anybody that has a feeling of trepidation about recovering memories, I never allow anyone to re-experience anything traumatic. If an event starts becoming disturbing, I immediately pull the person out to a point where they are merely an observer. And they can still process the info and tell me all about it and release any trauma, but I do not allow anyone to experience trauma. You don't have to.
Well, when I go to Toronto next year for the Alien Cosmic Expo, I want you to put me under. I want to try.
I will.
I want to try it out because I want to recall the feeling that I have a little snippet of in my brain of punching a gray in the chest. I want to relive that because I want to feel that again. But nonetheless, I'm going to get you to hold on, Lesley, as we got to go to our first break of the night. Lesley Mitchell-Clarke is our guest tonight, clinical hypnotherapist for MUFON Canada, MUFON in general. We're talking ET abductions, ET contact, you know, sprinkle in a little MUFON on the side, and we'll have more with Lesley right after this.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm going to take you for a ride every Sunday night on Spaced Out Sundays. I'm going to set up your week with some strange tales from across North America, from psychic readings, Sasquatch, UFOs, to the most haunted locations. Come join me at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, and let's get weird together. I'd love for you to join me. Spaced Out Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
There's news and there's the encounter. This is Spaced Out Radio News Director Everett Beamer inviting you to check out The Encounter. Our half-hour news segment every Monday through Friday night is different compared to what you're used to. Our goal is to bring you the weird, strange, and interesting stories the mainstream tends to leave out, and stories that will make you scratch your head in disbelief. The Encounter can also be found at spacedoutradio.com and on our Facebook page, SOR The Encounter. Come give us a read.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. Tomorrow night, former police officer and author Robert Snow joins us to talk about past lives and reincarnation. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We welcome back everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network and Deep Talk Radio. Don't forget, you can also check out our archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, Lumpen Proletariat. Lumpen Proletariat is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, we got a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our store, read up on the encounter online, and so much more. Tonight, we are talking hypnotherapy, how it works for experiencers of alien contact and alien abduction. One of the best in the business from MUFON is Lesley Mitchell-Clarke, who is based out of Toronto, Ontario. Lesley, welcome back.
Thank you, Dave, and it's just wonderful to be here, and thank you for being such an attentive and knowledgeable host. It's really wonderful, and it's always fun coming on the show. Thank you.
Well, we love having you, and I know you're a big supporter of what we do, and I want you to know that I highly appreciate all the words you do to spread the love about this show. I really do appreciate that within the community.
Oh, thank you, Dave. Thank you so much.
Before the break, we were talking about, people and the experiences they are having. Are people just having the experiences with extraterrestrials, or is it more than just that?
Well, I've got to tell you, there are a wide variety of the types of experiences that people have during their lifetime. And one thing I will say that I think is kind of interesting is that in people's early lives, until they get to be maybe in middle school, maybe early high school, the experiences that they have with ETs tend to be very physical. In other words, they are either floated out of their bedrooms, through the wall or through the ceiling, or they are called out of their bedrooms and they walk to a place and they get picked up. But there's a physical leaving of the vicinity. Now, whether they fool with time and the parents actually have no idea that they've been gone for 6 hours, it feels like a minute on Earth, who knows? But however that temporal situation works, these experiences in early life seem to be very physical. Now, later on, when we get into the age of majority, 17, 18, something like that, the experiences tend to be more etheric. In other words, by that I mean usually the client will go into a deep sleep, and I believe it's actually a form of astral projection that many ETs use all the time. We're the only ones that seem to have a little bit of trouble with it, but they're able to use it and send themselves holographically and do all kinds of other things. But I think the experiences become less physical and more of the etheric nature the longer an experiencer proceeds through life. I'm not sure why this is, but it is a very, very common pattern that I have seen. I've discussed it with Kathy Martin. I've discussed it with Ray Hernandez. This is a pattern that we see. Now, another thing that seems to happen is I will sometimes, in all the years I've been doing this, I'll seem to get a wave of a certain type of person who has had a specific type of experience. Like maybe I'll get a wave of people who have had, been taken as children and did this, that, and the other. Well, what I'm seeing now, as far as the numbers coming in, I am seeing an awful lot of individuals who have been involved in some type of collaborative program between certain types of ETs and certain governments, Canadian and U.S. and others, and these people are coming to me and very, very much in sync with the experiences of our good friend Captain Randy Kramer, who is completely credible, and so these are the types of things that seem to be coming out, and I almost have to wonder if the memories, the suppressed memories of these individuals that were involved in these, top secret space program activities, I'm wondering if their memories are not time dated, because they all seem to be, the people coming forward to me all seem to be in a certain age range. They're all about Randy Kramer's age, right? They're all in the same, and if you look at Corey Goode, these guys are all in the same generation, if you will. I mean, about your age, Dave, much younger than myself. So
I got more gray hair than both of them combined, though.
Well, Randy's got his sort of a paramilitary haircut going on now. I don't know, but it looks like the Louisiana State Correctional Institution.
I don't know. You know what? My jury is still out on Corey Goode, because in this day and age, I just don't.
Mine too, Dave.
And in this day and age, I just don't trust many people who still wear a mullet. But nonetheless. Nonetheless, there's a lot of questions about him. One of the things that has come up recently in regards to a lot of my own personal research, Lesley, and it kind of ties in with what you're saying is, I know you deal with American clients, but being in Toronto, you also deal with a lot of Canadian clients.
Yes,
and it was very much surprising to me on the Canadian experiencers who I have had on this show to detail what has happened to them. And I am absolutely amazed by Canadian people saying that they have been involved in MyLabs, MK Ultra, Black Men in Black Ops, Men in Black being followed, phones tapped, computers tapped, and FBI coming around, and it never really made sense to me. And it's amazing, though, that a lot of these experiences for people started happening around that 2007 to 2012 era, when the money came out from the U.S. government to kind of look at UFOs. Do you think there's a tie-in between the two?
Well, one thing I will say, and that is without question, is there have been military collaborations between Canada and the U.S. for years. In fact, in the form of the DO line, which is, I think, is a term you probably use here, but there are still collaborative U.S.-Canadian bases established in the far north. They were supposed to be, the purpose was that they would be the first responders in a Cold War. So they were also nuclear bases. And many of the experiencers with MELAB, Black Ops situations that I work with have a parental connection where they grew up on bases, or their parents, generally the father was involved in the military. Maybe they moved around, but they had access to these locations. I believe there is a big connection between the whole MELAB experience and these American, U.S., and I believe ET bases that were some secret, some not, that were involved in that DO line process. That's what I think has been going on. Otherwise, why would there be this high confluence of individuals of credibility who have these horrendous memories of things happening to them at the hands of essentially our own people? I may have some answers for you. Okay.
Now you gotta, get your tinfoil. Do you want me to let you go to the kitchen to get you the roll of tinfoil?
I got it on the break because I sensed I might need it. The tinfoil is on.
Okay, perfect. Well, you know what? And for our American listeners, I realize this may not seem a little bit, or this may seem a little bit, obscure, considering what it doesn't really affect what's happening down south. But up here, I found out that every time you call the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, or you're in regards to a UFO incident, whether it's a landing or in the air, that they immediately report it to NORAD, which means that NORAD gets your information.
Yes.
Okay. And when you add that to the fact that when Bob Bigelow got the money from the government to buy into MUFON, which is very well known, he also used that money to buy a bunch of Canadian UFO websites. So all of a sudden, when you add in NORAD, combine that with groups that, or these websites that Bob Bigelow bought up, it's no wonder that Canadian people are all of a sudden having these experiences. Because it all seems to time together on the timeline.
Well, it does, and we're on the radar in a big way with all of this. Don't forget, there's been so much activity in Montreal, down east. The name escapes me. The submersible that it happened in the 60s. Oh boy. Anyway, there's been activity, big, vibrant UFO activity all across Canada forever. All the Native peoples that you talk to that are Native Canadians talk about the Star People and have regular interaction and have ceremony to bring them in. And, of course, in BC, a lot of UFO activity, and that began, really in World War II because there were nuclear submarines off the coast of BC and California, and the ETs are always concerned about that. So, Canada's been, as far as sightings, boy, we're way up there, I'm sure. Maybe not as high as Australia. I think, Dave, that Australia is number one right now for UFO sightings.
Does it have to do anything with Pine Gap?
I wonder. One must wonder.
Well,
Go ahead.
I guess what I'm saying is with the way it is happening out there, it just seems like these groups, whether it's Bigelow, whether it's MUFON, whether it's whoever, it seems like there is this race going on to get control of the information that is out there. Do you see it that way?
Well, yeah. I mean, there is absolutely an element of that, I think. And, part of it is just zeal. Part of it is just zeal. And I think, but there is a competitive edge. And, but I think the irony is that the reality is that Mars and the moon and other planetoids, everything in our solar system basically is already accessible and has been explored and is already under control of a military combined force, the Mars Defense Force and the Lunar Defense Force. It is active. It has been active since the Eisenhower years. And so the idea that number 45, that Trump wants his little space force. I mean, he wants a little ray gun. That's what he wants. And I have to wonder, all of this so-called disclosure that you're hearing about, it doesn't seem to be getting to the nitty-gritty. I mean, even people like Tesla are talking about, Elon Musk are, coming forward to have their own independent space programs. But the fact is that we're already there. And how long is this charade going to continue on? The charade that it would be that we have actually two parallel space programs going on, one primitive and in the dark, and the other one using superluminal flight and all kinds of other reverse engineered technology since the 50s. So, we're living in very interesting times, Dave, and I see that people like yourself and myself, we are the midwives of disclosure, because this is how disclosure is going to happen, is happening through programs like yours.
And I appreciate that. And I think, though, that the big concern heading into any type of disclosure movement is it really seems to be focused on who's going to get that information. Where is that information coming from? And I got to admit, I never listened to Coast AM because, well, we're on the air 7 days a week and we have a weekend host in Tessa Nicole Thomas. So if I'm actually awake at that time, I'm listening to that show. But normally I try and take my weekends away and just kind of walk away from the studio for a while. And I think, who can really blame me? I'm in this studio about 12 hours a day. But nonetheless, I was listening to Coast, and, to me, George Knapp is one of the most brilliant voices in this entire medium, right?
He's wonderful. Yes, wonderful.
And he had on Luis Elizondo and Jan Harzan last night. And for me, what triggered some questions and yes, the questions are so easy to have when you were listening rather than actually broadcasting, was I had no idea there was any tie whatsoever between MUFON and To the Stars. But apparently
Really?
they are collaborating on some information here, especially regarding around the videos.
I had no idea. I had no idea of that.
As a member of MUFON, how do you feel about that?
Well, you know, I have concerns about. I do have concerns about security all the time. My job is to take care of my clients, to ensure their privacy, and also, you know, I myself am bound by, you know, the medical privilege of consultation. You know, what passes between the client and myself is privileged consultation. Now, that being said, I know that by the time I'm referred people from MUFON, they have already given permission for MUFON to receive a recording of their session. But I'm not sure that they maybe have the clearest idea of how available it makes it. But, you know, I'm the only one, I have their files coded. I'm the only one who knows who they are. Right? So, I mean, MUFON does know which file attaches to which name, but as far as getting the file from me, no one would be able to tell whose file is which. I have them coded, and then I delete them after a very short time. The recording of the session, I believe, is the client's property. So I don't keep them on file. It's not my business. You know, I don't study the sessions after it's their property. So I send the file usually by email, or sometimes I put it on a data stick and I give it to the client, and it remains available for a few more days, and then I delete it. But I think I will discuss that issue of security, you know, with clients that come in, and make sure that they understand that they have released, you know, they have released their control to a certain extent over a recording of their session.
So when you get permission to do this and you turn it into MUFON, what kind of security are you going through with the client to make sure that, you know, their information remains private? Because with MUFON, and I'm not accusing them of anything, I'm just asking questions. Mm-hmm. But we do know in the past with John Carpenter that MUFON was selling files to Robert Bigelow. Mm-hmm. For $100 a piece. In total, he paid Carpenter $14,000. So that was 1,400 reports. Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, this is disturbing, and I don't really have an answer for this, except that by the time someone comes to me from MUFON, you know, they've already done all the proper legal releases, as I understand. Now, I myself, the only document that I have a client sign is permission for me to hypnotize them, essentially. But I probably should add something into my paperwork that assures them in writing that their session is confidential. But as I said, you know, I would never send it randomly. The session only exists for a short time in my possession, and I make sure that the client has it, either in just a data stick or by email, and then I erase it, and no one else gets it or has it, not even me.
Could you get in trouble? And I'm asking just a generalized question here. Mm-hmm. Let's say one of your clients didn't know that their information was being turned over to a third party. They thought it was confidential. Could you lose your license, or could you get in trouble from the law for this happening?
There could certainly be some disciplinary action of some sort, which is why I always, before I do anything, I always double or triple ask them, do you know now I'm going to share this with so-and-so? So not only, I have a verbal and a written permission. And that's really the best I can do as far as security, because I'm operating with the best of intentions, according to the client's wishes.
I understand that
Yeah.
and appreciate it, because it does come down to client pay or the privilege.
Yes.
It does come down to that.
Confidentiality. Yes,
But
it does, and I'm bound by it.
But I'm a little concerned that you, as a MUFON member, didn't know that the two were working in collaboration.
I did not know that.
I mean,
Yeah.
I got a tweet today from Chase Klutsky,
Mhm.
and I'm just trying to find it here. But it was basically about the fact that, let me see, I'm just scrolling up here because I know I'm close. Because I asked the question last night on Twitter. I said, since at MUFON works off donations and his nonprofit is TTSA Academy funding them through their partnership, and in return is hashtag TTSA getting confidential reports a la Bigelow back in the day. Chase Klutsky, who I have a ton of respect for, absolute ton of respect for. She responded. She goes, no money is given to MUFON by To the Stars. However, why would we not talk about the future of information and hitting Congress and Senate on evidence and what AATIP or ATIP can offer? Is it possible that Lou, being Lou Elizondo, may have great insights and help to move farther than ever before? And I agree with that. However, it has me a little concerned that this is just kind of like, yeah, we're doing it. And MUFON members, such as yourself, who are held highly esteemed, don't even know about the connection.
Yeah. Well, I will absolutely, thank you, Dave, for letting me know. And I just hope, everyone out there will know that, any hypnotherapist who does this kind of work, any hypnotist who does this kind of work, we are totally bound by medical privilege consultation, and I would protect the client's right to that above all things. So I'm going to look into this, and if there's any risk here, if I determine any risk, I will no longer be sharing files.
What, knowing that you were just learning about this, and I apologize for catching you off guard with it, but what concerns do you have? Because I'm hearing some hesitancy in your voice all of a sudden.
Well, I'm always concerned about the possibility that the trust that I build with clients could be damaged. These are often very fragile people, Dave. These are people that don't trust their parents. They don't trust anything because they've been powerless, or they feel they've been powerless. They often don't have very many close friends or relationships, so for them to trust another person is a big deal. And, it's not unusual for them to be paranoid outside of what you would consider a normal, healthy amount of self-preservation. So these are fragile people. A lot of them have a certain type of PTSD, I would have to say. They suffer from many of the same symptoms that you would attribute to PTSD. So my concern is that the trust that I have worked so hard to build, that the trust remains. Because many of my clients, I see them intermittently, and I see them for years. Not like, 100 sessions, but, I might see them a couple times one year and a time or two the next year. You know what I'm saying, Dave? When they feel that they need to see me, they come to me. And I want them to always feel safe and that they can trust me. That's paramount. Now, do I think that Ryan Stacy of MUFON and my confederates at MUFON Canada are completely trustworthy? Yes, I do.
I would agree with that.
Yes, I do.
I would agree with that 100%.
I would trust you, Bundy, with my life, honestly. Dave Pawlicek, Ryan Stacy, these are ethical to a fault. These people now, and I know these people, so in dealing directly with them, I have no worries. What concerns me is what maybe is happening above them, or not against their knowledge, or not of their knowledge.
Well, and I think a lot of this, and we should preface this Okay, the people such as yourself or the people such as regular everyday investigators or even state directors are not dealing on the business side of things. They are dealing with the experiences and the reports. So to throw everybody into the same hat when it comes to, these types of dealings and collaborations really isn't fair. And I think and I want the people listening to know that you have to separate the two. The people who are doing the investigations, put them on one side, and the people who are doing the business side, a la Jan Harzan, the president of MUFON, and whatever, you got to put them on the other side. And, my thing is, all MUFON, over the years, and I haven't been doing this a lot, but in the research I have done for MUFON, or for MUFON, in regards to the organization, I don't think there are many more organizations that know how to shoot themselves in the foot better than MUFON. Like, why not send out a press release to the alternative media and hell, even to your members, saying this is what we have the opportunity to do with To the Stars. There is no financial implications. This is just strictly evidence based. They have asked us to team up to look over the Tic Tac type videos, and we have obliged to do that. Why not keep the membership informed? Yet MUFON continually never seems to do that.
Well, I can't speak for the length of MUFON, but, I do get a lot of very fascinating notifications from them quite regularly. And it's, I got to say, Dave, it's possible that there even was a notification about this very issue, and I may have just not seen it. I will have to ask, about this whole thing, but generally speaking, I find that I'm, really well informed, but again, not on the business side, really, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, not on the business side.
But let's face it, MUFON in the public eye does not have, especially in the field of ufology, does not have the best credibility. Why not send a press release out to all the different shows or people in their mail list? I mean, if a hockey team or a baseball team makes a trade, right, or they get a new sponsorship on their arena or ballpark, there's a press release that goes out. It's nice and simple. Yeah. It's nice and simple, and that's all you need to do.
Yep. Well, I know that during the the lead up to Alien Cosmic Expo, and maybe during other times too, they sort of they work with our friend Victor Vigiani, I believe, has a Zealand Media. He has a lot to do with if not everything to do with the media outreaches. That's there. So they do. They're working with Victor, but I think there could be more. I think, and I'm not sure if Victor does this all year or just heading up to ACE. But at any rate, yeah, there could be more. I think it's a question of money. I do. I know that they don't have a big budget. That's for sure.
Well, and To the Stars, if you draw the links all the way past, the people that are involved have all been tied one way or another to Robert Bigelow. And now we got the Bigelow factor again, which is circa 2007 to 2012 again.
Yeah.
Could it go that far? We don't know, but there is a very strong possibility when you start looking down, the road of who's involved with To the Stars, and then, that guy worked for Bigelow, that guy worked for Bigelow, Putoff, Alexander, Semivan. Wow. Okay, they all at one point have worked for Robert Bigelow.
Well, this is something we have to keep an eye. We're coming up to a big transition in our society where balances of power are going to change, and the free earth energy is going to be a reality, and a lot of people can feel this. They don't really know how it's going to happen, but they feel the change in the air, and they're getting very excited. I think we can feel the timelines energizing in a pretty amazing way, and so that's what's going on. I think we just have to. I think you're very, very smart to be astute, and I'm going to. And thank you for bringing all this up, Dave. And because, as I said, my client's privacy and trust and comfort is, and anyone that might call me as well. I mean, this. Anytime someone picks up a phone and talks to me, that's privileged consultation, right? So, that's my main concern. That is my main concern.
I want to ask you one more question about this before we move on, because I want our audience to hear some of the experiences that you deal with on a daily basis, and I know you have quite a few to show. But I'm assuming that after this conversation, you're probably going to have a talk with a number of close MUFON members and friends that you know. What happens if you don't like what you're hearing?
Boy, that is an interesting question. I think what I would probably do is I would probably talk to Kathy Martin and consult with her. After all, she really is my supervisor as such. She is the head of their experiencer research program. And I would discuss if there was something that was bothering me, if I didn't get an answer to my satisfaction, or if I felt that there was something that was not really ethical, or if I was bothered in any way and I wasn't satisfied with the answers I was getting from my colleagues, I would speak to Kathleen Martin.
Well, don't be surprised if I call you later this week. I'm curious now. I want to be a fly on the wall now. I totally do. I totally do. And to be honest with you, I want to commend you on the answers that you actually gave on this, because, I mean, you're about transparency, and there are a lot of people in MUFON about the transparency. And once again, I mean, they can sit there and say, well, even though they're, like Chase said in the tweet, and I love Chase, where she stated that sure, they could work together. Why not? If there's no money tied in, why not? Well, I look at it and say, well, there's a bunch of spooks and former spooks on the To the Stars. Should we really be working with them if we're a nonprofit, organization? But that's just me. Yeah. But I really hope that you're able to find the answers, and I hope, you're willing to come back and tell us the answers to that, if you don't mind.
I will absolutely look into that, Dave, and see what I can find out. But I suppose all of the paperwork, everything that they do with MUFON goes to their central, reporting area. So whether or not the recordings are shared, there's still data being shared.
Absolutely.
That's the reality.
Yeah,
that's I have no control over that, but yeah, so that is, even without the recording, that is a concern.
Right.
So
I have a couple questions from our audience here before we get into the experiences. On Twitter, Muji is asking, and he's from Nova Scotia, I believe. He's asking, Lesley, have you ever regressed 2 or more people at the same time to recall a paranormal experience or event?
Not at the same time. But I have, in fact, recorded. I have, in fact, worked with people individually to go after the same event, and that was fascinating. The reason you really can't do an in-depth hypnosis with 2 people in that way is because people process at very different rates. If the 2 people would answer questions when I asked them at the same rate, then you could maybe do that. But sometimes when you ask someone a question and they're a slow processor, you'll see all this REM activity going on under their eyelids, and you have to wait like 30 seconds before you hear anything. So it would be very difficult from a timing standpoint. Now, of course, I've hypnotized groups of people, but that's without there being a verbal response and the necessity for them to answer questions. So if it's a group of people and there's no talking back and forth, you can hypnotize as many people as can hear you. But no, for those reasons, I haven't worked with 2 people together at the same time. But I have worked with 2 people who experienced the same thing, and I worked with them individually to recover the details, and they reported the same details, essentially.
Awesome. Let's get to Kat's question here. She is asking, Lesley, how can hypnosis work with someone who has real social phobias?
Well, that is an interesting question. Now, social phobias generally come from and I'm making a generalized statement here, but they often come with issues of fear of being criticized, fear of not measuring up, fear of not being good enough. So most social anxiety is really all tied to self-esteem issues. So when I'm working with someone who is experiencing those issues, one of the things that I do is I give them what we call an anchor. It's kind of a little hypnosis trick, but I give them a little thing to do with their fingers that releases endorphins and allows them to feel comfortable. So they have a little physical mind-body thing that they can do. Now also I work on self-esteem. I release bad feelings, release old stuff. Maybe there's been bullying. 9 times out of 10 there has been. So the whole issue of, I find, of social anxiety can be terrifically helped by support in the areas of self-esteem and confidence and release of old trauma.
Can it heal people, though? And if so, how does it heal?
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. Once people stop carrying around their garbage, they can heal. You know, we don't know how to release negativity. We're not taught how to do that. We tend, as human beings, to ruminate, to carry stuff, to let it form, even behaviors, because we're so unwilling to let go. We might have many relationships that are essentially the same because we're not letting go. We're not learning the lessons. So all of this stuff can be incredibly relieved, so that an individual can have a happy, fulfilling life. And sometimes we release old stuff through regression, but I don't always have to use regression at all. We can do it by analogy. We can do it, it's not necessary to use deep regression to release trauma.
I'd like to get into some of the stories that you have, because you're always full of stories about these encounters people are having. And what is a story that is very memorable to you that just pops into your head? Is it something with a child, maybe something with a husband and wife tandem? What story really piques your interest that you just can't get enough of and you think about all the time?
Well, there's been so many, but I think I'll tell you one from way back and one very recent one. This recent story is I was sent a lovely young lady, actually, through MUFON, and she had only partial memory of one experience where there was light coming in the window and she was taken somewhere, but no real details of any sort that she could put her finger on, and just feelings. And she was also very psychic. She had a lot of psychic phenomena going on around her, and I think she was feeling some confusion between what is the psychic phenomena and what is ET phenomena, if any. So we used regression, and we went back in time, and of course I found out that she had been an experiencer since she was a little tiny child. And this is what I'm about to tell you is what happened to her regularly throughout most of her childhood. She had a sister that she slept in the room with. There's more kids than just 2, but she shared a room with her sister. Now, in the middle of the night, usually, sometimes in the day, but usually in the middle of the night, the room would fill with light, and this lovely being would appear at the window. Sometimes she would knock on the window. And she was a being that looked very close to human, but perhaps maybe her eyes were a little more slanted. She had very pale blonde hair, maybe in what we would call the classic Pleiadian, something like that. That's what this being looked like. And so then the sister, because she was not cooperative, because she would get scared, she was always put to sleep. Like the being said, oh, we're just going to let her sleep. So they put her into a deep sleep and then float my client out, walk right through the wall. And then often they would go into a craft. And this being would always come down and pick her up in something that was very much like a shuttlecraft. It was very small. It only had 2 seats, and it was shaped like a little point, like a little triangle. And it had cloaking capability. She said it was like reflection. It's like the ship could reflect the environment around it so that it wasn't really seen. And anyway, she would go with this very, very loving being. She loved this being. In fact, when we regressed to an early experience, she felt that this being, this lovely woman, was actually biologically related to her, like a mother. So, I'm not sure what was happening there, but it certainly does seem as if there was some genetic tampering, maybe. I'm not quite sure how this would work, but she felt a very strong connection to this being, and this being kept coming back and seeing her again and again. And one of the times, or not one of the times, but this happened many times, where she would be brought up to what you would call a mothership. They would just they'd zip up to a mothership in like moments. And she said it was like going through, they were going so fast that you didn't see stars. It sounds like superluminal flight or some type of corridor, Stargate, who knows. So she would be on these big motherships, and then the lovely being would take her to be with some other children, and they would be involved in doing some type of complex game or task. And then she would be brought back. Sometimes they took some samples and some skin samples, and she would ask why, and they said, well, we're testing the level of pollution and trying to see if it's having any cellular effect. That's what they would tell her. But on this mothership with the beautiful Pleiadian being and the children and the whole thing going on, there were also Greys. But the Greys seemed to be of the robotic type rather than a, intelligent like Zeta A or Zeta B. So the beings were rather robotic, and they couldn't communicate telepathically, whereas the Pleiadian being and her colleagues were all communicating telepathically. They looked like us, but they didn't move their mouths. And
Wow.
So this young lady, from the fragments that she had of some experiences, was having a good deal of fear and anxiety. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't, she was fearful, paranoid. And after she was able to understand that on a big level, she was involved in this project. She was involved with this woman, this Pleiadian woman. She was a part of it. Once that's understood, it kind of shifts the entire paradigm, because once you realize that you're not a victim, and that's another thing, Dave, that I'm always trying to put forth. You're not a victim, you're a collaborator. And you're a collaborator because you made an agreement and you have special skills. And that's really what we find. So that was just the other day.
Right.
And this woman is completely credible. And, I'm just giving you a little taste of what she talked about. And she was one of these experiencers where when she was a little girl, when we regressed her in time, she actually spoke like a little girl. not everybody does that, but she was so deep, that when she was 3 or 4 was the first episode that we went to.
No kidding.
Yeah, so that was, and we went through in that session we went through until she was about 10 or so, and she and the Pleiadian being said, I'm not going to be able to see you in the same way now, and she didn't understand why, and the Pleiadian being said, well, it's for the best, it's for your development. I'll be around if you need me, but I'll be around if you need me, but I won't be able to see you in this way. And she was so upset. I mean, she was sobbing in trance, just to have to say goodbye to that being that she really loved and felt so close to, in a way, closer maybe than she felt to her own mother, her Earth mother.
I got some questions from our audience, but I want to ask you in regards to that situation, especially children. How does a parent, like my little guy is 5. How would I know that he has been abducted or not?
Well, I think you must listen to what the kids are telling you. And if you suspect that there is it would manifest probably first, Dave, as some real serious sleep disorder. Waking, saying there's a nightmare, saying there's someone in his room. And I mean, all kids do that, but I mean beyond what would be normal. I think that would be a primary thing to look for. And then, you can always ask little kids questions, and they're very honest. I remember that my eldest son, our eldest son, when he was very little, maybe 4 or 5, he used to draw these pictures of what was obviously some Asian people. I mean, he had drawn kimonos and obis, and he would say, well, this is my other family, and that's my sister. And I wasn't blessed with a daughter, so he didn't have a sister. And then I would ask him a lot of questions, and he would tell me all about this Japanese life, and I wrote it all down. Now he remembers nothing, but when kids are little, with just some gentle conversation, without leading them, you can definitely find out a lot of stuff. But I would say, unless your child is having some type of unusual fear response, some unusual sleep disorder, there's probably nothing to worry about.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because my little guy, I took him in April to the museum where I do a ghost tour. And we walked into this brand new building, and I asked him point blank, just an innocent question. I said, do you see anybody? He goes, yeah. I said, do you see a man? He goes, no. I said, do you see a woman? He goes, no. I said, do you see a boy or a girl? He goes, a boy. I said, where? And in the building, he looked and said this little boy was hiding under the kitchen table. And I went, okay. So when I took him back there a couple weeks later for our next tour, because I go into all the buildings about a day before the tour to let them know that the tour will be the next night, so that way the ghosts aren't caught off guard. I don't know. Some people may call it screwy, but I think it's good business. And so I took my son back, and my son goes to me, hey, Daddy, where's the little boy? I don't see him under the table anymore. And I went, wow. And it's really weird, because this past Saturday night we had a tour, and they, through the meters that we use, were picking up the little boy under the table, and he actually rocked one of the chairs in front of some teenage girls that were there, which was kind of cool. Yeah. We got about 3.5 minutes before we got to go to break. I want to get in a question here from John, who is asking, Lesley, why do you suppose certain alien species have been reported to stare into the eyes of their subjects to hypnotize and immobilize them? What do you reckon is the mechanism involved with this form of mind control?
Well, I don't know if I would call it mind control. But I do think that some evolved beings are able to induct us into various states of consciousness fairly easily, probably by being able to release certain brain chemistry. Now, whether they do that with whether they do that with a telepathic suggestion, I really am going to posit that it is something along those lines, that they are able to do very quickly and very easily what it takes me longer to do naturally. I think that they are able to induct an individual telepathically into a trance state that allows them to, move them around or do whatever they need to do or stop pain or whatever it is they're doing.
Do you think, let's, we got about 90 seconds here. Let's try and get in another question here from Vivian, who is asking, Lesley, have you ever come across two people who were in the same room at the same time going through their situation?
Yes, I have. And it's easiest to find this, it's easiest to come across this type of experience with children. I always ask when people are taken as children and they're in a group with other children, I always ask if they recognize anyone. And invariably, that's the little girl who lives down the street from me. I've seen this guy before on the ship. So yes, people do recognize each other, which seems to indicate, that they have a whole nother kind of life going on while they're in the deep sleep stages, while everybody else is in their deep sleep stages.
Why, once again, is it children?
They're very interested in socialization. Now, I don't know exactly why this is, but they appear to be, and many of the clients I've had have recalled these same types of experiences where they're brought on a craft with a bunch of other children, and they're put in some type of construct, some type of situation, like a birthday party or a pediatrician's office, or some of the children sometimes will seem as if they're asleep. Some of them won't be asleep. But this idea of a group of children together having some type of experience is something that I have heard again and again and again. And sometimes it will be siblings together that have this experience. And when we come back, if you want, there's a little story about a family having an experience that maybe you'd like to hear about.
On that note, I'm going to get you to hold on, as we are going to get more stories from Lesley Mitchell-Clarke, hypnotherapist for MUFON, and we're going to learn more about ET contact through regression therapy right after this on Spaced Out Radio. Then at the bottom of the hour, number 3, we are going to get Everthemer in here from The Encounter as well. We'll be right back.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us and bring your questions for us to investigate right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
When it comes to the news, we look for the stories that the mainstream won't cover. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter. This is News Director Everett Thiemer. The Encounter is about the weird and strange stories that occur daily, and we scour the world looking to bring them to you. You can hear me with Dave Scott every Monday through Friday in our Encounter news segment. Read us online at spacedoutradio.com or check us out and give our Facebook page a like at SOR The Encounter. So come give The Encounter a read.
From the mile-high state of Colorado, sharing our signal around the world, I invite you to Spaced Out Sundays. Hi, I'm Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm closing out the week by taking you on a paranormal journey to the world of the weird. Ghosts, aliens, psychic phenomena, I will hit it all in your questions too. So let us highlight the paranormal for you. So come join me for Spaced Out Sundays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. Tomorrow night on the program, it's going to be a very interesting show. Author Robert Snow, who spent 38 years as a police officer, talks about past lives and reincarnation. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. We welcome back everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network and Deep Talk Radio. And also, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. If you want to check out our archives for free, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, Lumpen Proletariat. Lumpen Proletariat is your password. Nobody knows what it means. It's way too long to have a meaning. But Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the encounter online, and so much more at spacedoutradio.com. Lesley Mitchell-Clarke is our guest. We introduce her. She will be here until the bottom of the hour before we head into the news with Everett Thiemer from the Encounter Online. Lesley is a clinical hypnotherapist who works very closely with abduction and contactees from the MUFON perspective. Lesley, welcome back.
Thank you, Dave.
I got a question from Twitter here, if you don't mind. This one comes
Not
from
at all.
John. He is asking, how do you know, Lesley, that your clients are actually recalling past lives as opposed to being possessed or influenced by other beings?
Well, that's a very interesting question. And first of all, I should say, because past life regression, interlife regression is a metaphysical process, I take great care in cleaning the space with, sage and other things and some Native American rituals, some other rituals. So I make sure the space is cleansed. And before I even begin, the process, I lead the client through a creation of white light, and we do another cleansing, and in that way, the space is always sort of sanctified. Nothing bad is going to come in to that space. I personally, I guess I don't want to say that there is not demonic possession. I'm not going to say that because people have had those types of experiences. But as far as I'm concerned, I have never come across it. I have come across aspects of people that are amoral and nasty, and I've taken people to past lives where they were beings of that nature. But I have never had a experience that I would consider a demonic one as far as past life regression. Past life regression is a benign, it should be a benign, gentle, loving process. And if you simply follow the correct protocols, if the space is cleansed, if the person undergoing the process has pure intent, if there are no, drugs or intoxicants involved, it should be a wonderful, relieving experience. In other words, I would say I have never done a past life regression that was not a positive and mind-opening experience for the client. I have never had that kind of experience that you are referring to. Now, it is true that I suppose in the big picture, it could be possible for someone to fool a hypnotherapist. I'm not saying that's not possible, but I think, given, my experience and training and such, if somebody's not in trance deep enough to do the process, I know about it, and I have stopped it. I've said, you know what, I think you're having a little too much anxiety today. Let's try this again in a couple of days. Because sometimes people get very worked up. They get worked up that maybe they won't be able to be hypnotized. They get worked up that, oh God, what if I hear something terrible? They get worked up for all kinds of reasons. And sometimes people do come to me so agitated that I just have to say, look, I don't know if you had a bunch of espressos this morning. I don't know if this is just your own anxiety, but we're going to have to try this again in a couple of days. And I guess that would be in my judgment. So, I just make sure that someone is in a nice, healthy, protected trance before I start.
Let's get back into the ET contact or abduction, because you said there's a lot of positives going on. What are people seeing when they are going back to recall their experiences? Is it the humanoids? Is it Pleiadians? Is it, the Greys, the Mantids, reptilians, good or bad?
Mm-hmm.
What are people seeing, and what kind of experiences are they having?
Well, they're having a wide variety of experiences, Dave, a wide variety. Now, I know, Paul Hellyer said that the Canadian government was aware of something like 700 and some species just in our neighborhood. And I spoke to someone else whose opinion I respect greatly, who told me that it's more like 1,000. So there are many, many different types of being. Although I do think that most of the beings that we are dealing with have a basic blueprint, a head, 2 arms, they're bipedal, they have digestive organs. I think there is a kind of a blueprint for beings that can easily engage together, on this or other dimensions. So people are having all kinds of experiences. Now, one of my clients, and this is very interesting because he's also somebody who's been involved in the Black Ops program. But another one of my clients had and has a being that he has engaged with since he was like in junior high, maybe earlier. And he said that this being would appear on craft when he was training, when he was like a cadet. The being would appear, and he was an insectoid being, and his name is Kern, according to my client. And so Kern would be acting kind of like a sounding board or guide or teacher to my client. And although Gurn had a giant praying mantis, although Gurn had a shape and physiology that would be startling to many of us, my client was completely nonplussed by it. And he said that Kern was just really like pure love. His vibe was so warm and loving that you couldn't help but feel safe around him. So people are having all kinds of experiences. Now there is a type of being that seems to often be involved with medical examinations. Now some clients call them the brown doctors, and they appear to be some type of zeta, but the skin is not gray or white, or it's definitely a brown and has a more leathered look, and yet they are not reptilian. So there seems to be a certain kind benevolent race that looks like that is involved in many medical procedures where samples are taken, hopefully painlessly, and that kind of stuff. So when my clients encounter them when they're children, they often call them the brown doctors, because they're always involved in these processes. So and then of course there are beings that are incredibly humanoid, and even more humanoid than Pleiadians. There are beings that look undistinguished from us, who could certainly move about, in any environment in the world. And also, there are many hybrid beings living and working on this project. And
right.
And the hybrid beings are always being described to me as being involved with teaching. They seem to be really involved with teaching when people are either going aboard in groups of young people, or whether they're cadets. And one of my clients told me he was very embarrassed because he was about 12 or 13, and he and a bunch of his colleagues, which was, other 12 and 13-year-olds who were both boys and girls, were in a class that was about reproduction and genetics being taught by a hybrid woman who looked as if she was a gray and a humanoid hybrid. And they were all embarrassed, just like any 12-year-old would be. they were
No
laughing
kidding.
and giggling and causing trouble and not focusing. And of course, this teacher had no idea why these kids were not able to just focus and listen to the information. But no, so all kinds of beings are present and primarily benevolent. Now there are reptilians that are benevolent, and there are reptilians that are not so nice. But I'm going to just quote Randy Kramer for a moment, because he did tell me very recently that in the so-called secret space program, we're pretty much able to control our neighborhood. And that's one of the things that we're supposed to be doing, to be able to come to the table with the planetary organization and be equals. One of the things we're supposed to do, there's two things. We're supposed to control our neighborhood in a humane way, meaning, anybody that would have that bad intentions, get them out of the picture. And we're also supposed to show restraint in doing that. Like no neutralizing people with lasers. No, Randy told me that the craft that they use for patrol or for doing that has their laser cannons, I think, but not designed to kill anyone. So, we have certain things that we have to do before we are going to be accepted at the table as equals who can handle ourselves and show restraint, show that we have executive functions. But I tell you, it seems as if there's been that's an awful tall order for human beings on planet Earth. There's very little restraint that I'm seeing.
Let's get to another question here from our audience. This one is coming from Rick in the UK, who is asking, Lesley, are these beings carbon-based life forms or something else? Silicon? Have you, Lesley, had anyone elaborate on this?
They have talked about this, and I think that some beings are not carbon-based. It would have to do very much with the materials that are available and were seeded or developed naturally, whatever you choose to believe, on whatever planet is their home planet. I think they are silica-based beings. I think there are beings that don't have iron in their blood, but have maybe another ore, or perhaps even gold. I mean, we're going to see variations in these in the systems and the base mineral elements from which these beings are created. But the beings that are visiting are physical. They are physical. The beings that are more highly evolved and operate on the etheric level generally come to people, and it's not that type of an experience where they're taken on a craft. So these are physical beings. I do believe that they are based in different systems of chemistry. I do believe that they have different kinds of blood. The different kinds of blood thing is demonstrated on our own planet, for God's sake. We had so many contributions from so many cultures that we actually have a blood conflict within our own race. I mean, we are the only species on planet Earth that has a situation where someone can have O negative blood and O positive blood, and the mother's blood, if she's O negative, will consider the baby a parasite and try to attack it. So this doesn't happen anywhere else in nature. I think they've determined that the earliest blood system that appears is O negative blood, and that the later blood systems came into play a little bit earlier. You know that almost 90% of all Basque people have O negative blood?
I did not know that. As an O positive guy, I don't hang out with them O negative people.
Well, O is the old blood type. The negative or positive is a bit of an oddity. But, the only maybe 3% of the world's population has negative RH. So the fact that Basque people can have like 90% of their population with O negative blood speaks to some type of DNA infusion that happened to them. And they were able to be insular enough to preserve that ancient blood type.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to that, I mean, the blood type is sort of weird. Do you think that extraterrestrials are, in your research with experiencers, predicated by the type of blood that someone has, that they try and follow that type of lineage?
Well, I think most experiencers have negative RH. Most experiences, or many of them, have a negative blood type, which does point to some type of possible genetic connection to our early progenitors. So there does seem to be interest in negative RH blood type, or the fact that it indicates perhaps this early genetic material that the individual is carrying.
Very weird. Very weird. What's the strangest story that you have come across in your career?
Oh, my goodness. That's wow. The strangest story. I have so many strange stories. I suppose one of the strangest ones was involved one of my clients. Actually, it involves Wes Roberts, who has co-authored my first book, which will be out hopefully in the new year, which is called, by the way, Intersections, A True Story of Extraterrestrial Contact. So Wes Roberts has had this ongoing relationship with a being that he calls my twin, because she is slender and tall. He is slender and tall. I don't know if there's a genetic tie-in there, but has been present in mostly all of his encounters since the time he was a very, very small child. Again, we have this situation with a being making a connection with an individual, a positive connection, providing moral support and loving support, not unlike what happened with the young girl I discussed earlier. So it seems at a certain point when Wes was going through his process with this being, he was getting a lot of what they call upgrades. There was some implants that they were doing that, he would show me. He had triangular scars on his chest at one point. I mean, perfect little triangles, 2 of them. I have a picture somewhere, which I can send you, Dave, actually, because I made him take a picture. But so as part of the upgrade or stimulation or whatever they were trying to do, these particular beings, they had Wes float in a kind of fluid that was not water, but it was very viscous, like something that could carry a charge really well, like some type of a neuroreceptor, but like a viscous fluid. And he was lying in this kind of tub or pool, and next to him was lying the being that he always communicates with. I mean, as if there was nothing odd about that. And then I think they might have even been holding hands or something, but then some type of powerful current or energy wave came over him as a result of this process of laying in this type of tank with this specialized fluid, while the being seemed to charge the water. And when I brought him out of hypnosis, he was, he felt as if he was in a really altered state, because the residual of that memory was activated in his body. So that was something, he didn't know exactly why it happened, but it was very, very unusual.
That is wow.
Yeah.
What would be the charging of the water? Was it almost like they were oxygenating it?
He described it more as a feeling like a low level of electricity. They may have just been speeding up the vibration of everything, just stimulating the vibration of his cells to move to another level. I don't know if it was designed to stimulate the pineal gland, but she said it was like an upgrade. It was a stimulation, but it felt like current like that. But yet at the same time, he felt like incredibly high, almost as if you just, snorted half of Bogota or something like that. I mean, it was a real incredible rush, I would have to say.
Wow. So I'm more interested for some reason. I'm just fascinated with the whole child aspect in this. Do you get a lot of parents and children who go at the same time?
Well, Dave, there's often a familial connection. Often what I do find is people come in because maybe the child is having sleep disturbances. Now, I don't do regression on young children. 12 is minimum for me. It's not the law. There's no law about this. You can hypnotize a child if you feel safe about doing it. But children are so malleable. I personally do not work with them if they're under 12. I don't. Also, that helps the credibility of whatever they say because, children have a very fine line between fantasy and reality. And it can be messed with by the wrong therapist, as in like the McMartin child molestation case in California so many years ago, where they brought in social workers to do hypnotism on all these kids. And before you knew it, it was like the Salem witch trials, and all the kids were saying these horrendous things that they were being fed or led into, and there turned out to be no evidence whatsoever that anything ever happened. No evidence physically, no evidence, and these people's lives were ruined forever, because of the risk of expecting children to tell you literally what's going on. You have to get at it other ways. Anyway, I forgot what you were asking me, Dave. What was it you asked me?
Have you ever had like a mother-child or father-child?
Yes, I have. Yes. Now, usually what will happen is they come in with their child who's having sleep disturbance or is talking about, these experiences or whatever, and they've probably already taken their kid to a psychologist who's put them on, either Ritalin or an antidepressant or something, and usually in the process of working with the younger person, the mother or the father, sometimes both, will say to me, I have had some missing time too. Do you think we could, maybe look at that? So we absolutely see a familial, generational pattern of encounters.
Interesting. We got about 5 minutes left with you tonight, and this is just...
Oh, you're kidding, Dave.
Absolutely.
You're kidding.
I know. It's flown on by.
My
disappointing.
God.
I mean, the time is disappointing. I know. With you, we could always go extra time. That is for sure. But
Dave, thank you.
But when you wrap it all together, what is the goal in the hypnotherapy sessions? And are we close to solving any of the issues that we need to learn with extraterrestrials because of what we're learning out of these sessions?
I absolutely believe that we are. I have clients that are so sensitive and psychic, they can even talk to the beings that they visit in real time, as if in a type of a psychic communication. And I can ask questions, or they can ask questions, and I get answers. So everything that I hear is about trying to divert us from blowing up our planet. The disclosure movement is happening through individuals that have come into this lifetime now to do this with special abilities, and not to be afraid. And we have every right to join the rest of our galactic neighbors and live in harmony and peace. We just have to work on ourselves first. We have no difficulty doing horrible things to each other. So let us remember that we don't need to be fearful of benevolent beings who could wipe us out in a nanosecond if they wanted to. What we have to fear is our own dark nature. and ignorance and poverty and illness and these things that we are still allowing to go on when we really have the technology to solve these problems if we could only come together and use some of the secret technology that has been hidden from and stolen from the Canadian and the American people. So my goal is to work with individuals who are special, who are getting these messages, who are in contact, and help them to integrate this, realize how special they are, and be happy and content and safe in not only their physical, third-dimensional, third-density life, but in the work that they are doing that is going to lead us into the future.
Lesley, I want to say thank you so much for coming on the show tonight with us. I really do appreciate all the time that I ever get to spend with you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Dave. And it's always a pleasure for me. I mean, you ask the most insightful questions, and your audience is just wonderful. Not one ridiculing or demeaning comment of any sort. These are people who want to know, and that has to make you feel positive.
Totally
These are
does.
people who are open, and they want to know, and they're intelligent, and they want to learn more. That's all you can ask for.
It is great. Could you do me a favor? We got about a minute here. I would love it if you could take that time to tell people how they can get a hold of you if they want a hypnotherapy session or if they want to learn more about what you do.
Absolutely. You can always reach me by email at Lesley, Lesley, at lightworkhypnosis.com. And if you're in the Toronto area, you can also check out my clinic, which is the Bloom Center for Hypnotherapy. My colleague Dee Dee Vergados and I work there together. We could see you there if you prefer. But Lesley at lightworkhypnosis.com is the best way to go. And don't forget to go on YouTube and check out Contact TV. It's just youtube.com/Contact TV. And we have quite a few interesting interviews up there that we've done over the past couple of years. So I look forward to hearing from all of you, and especially if you just need to talk to someone, I'm available. I'm listening, as Fraser Crane said on that great show. Yes. I'm listening.
Lesley, it's always a good time when you are on the show. Thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio. Again, we will definitely do this again very, very soon. You have yourself a wonderful night.
Thank you so much, Dave. You too, and thank you for all the amazing work that you are doing. I wish you all the best. Thank you again, Dave.
Thank you.
Take care now.
We have Everett Themer and the Encounter coming up next.
This is the winter of our lives. We come to play the final scene. The curtains closing in the darkness we expose what lies beneath.
It's a Monday night edition of The Encounter tonight with the man, the myth, and the Illinois legend, Everett Themer, our intrepid news director of The Encounter Online. We always appreciate him coming in to kick off a brand new week of the weird, the strange, and the WTF when it comes to stories that are going on around the world. Everett Themer, thank you so much for joining us. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing absolutely fantastic. Love me some Lesley Mitchell-Clarke, but now we get to the good stuff, the good news. Did you have a good weekend?
It was pretty good. How about you?
I didn't get any trees cut down. I wanted to. I didn't make it out to the forest, man.
I played with my chainsaw.
Yeah. I even got sharp blades, man. I even got 2 sharp blades. Do you think I have been able to get out to the forest? Not yet, but Wednesday. Wednesday will be the day where we finally start loading up the wood for winter time. 17 weeks, man.
You got to start getting ready for winter soon.
Oh, yeah, very soon. I need 15 truckloads. Okay? So, I got a short box pickup. I know I need 15 of those to fill my wood quota for the winter, and I got to get started.
That's a lot of wood.
It is. You don't have a wife that's a burnaholic, man. I do.
Does she at least get the wood, or does she send you out?
Oh, no, I get sent out. Well, she'll be like, oh, I'm going to go get some wood and come up with like 2 pieces. Right?
You know,
and that's the guilt. That's the guilt coming out there that, oh, I better go get a buttload. You know what I'm saying?
See, when I send Tracy out there to get wood, she's learned. She comes back with a full handful.
Oh, no.
Or armful.
Oh, no, not in this one, man. Not in this one. It is just, a couple pieces of wood here. She may get rebellious at times and like go for 3 pieces, but that's rare.
That seems like a waste of a trip.
I know. But that's her sign with like, hey, man, get off your ass out of the office and get me some firewood. Stat. Mama is cold. And then there's me. Okay, I'll go get you some wood.
You are the perfect husband.
Well, hey, if it means that I get to fire up my chainsaw, I am very, very happy about that. Put on some plaid, fire up the chainsaw. That's a good Canadian day, my friend. A good Canadian day.
That's a good day anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Let's take a look at the news, my friend. Anything interesting going on around the world?
Well, do you have any superstitions about Friday the 13th or any refusal to do anything during that day?
I try and do as little as possible. I really do.
That's probably a smart thing, because a Virginia man crashed his car on Saturday the 14th after buying it on the 13th. But this isn't like a Hyundai or a Chevy. This was a $300,000 McLaren 720S.
Ooh. Hit the gas pedal a little too much, eh?
Yeah, he did. In fact, the Fairfax County Police Department issued a statement basically saying that the driver was taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. But they also issued a reminder to slow down or it could cost you.
Well, I mean, what could cost him more? The points on his license or the $100,000 in damage to his brand new McLaren, if not more? I mean, your $300,000 McLaren that you just wrapped around a pole or whatever you did is going to be worth about $18 after the repair.
Yeah, but if you're spending $300,000 on a car, I don't think the points on your license or the insurance adjustment and rise are going to affect you too much.
No, but you definitely don't want a rebuilt car either.
Yeah. Nice little bent frame on that thing.
Yeah. Can I see the car proof on that one? Would you mind?
Yeah, the car, what is it, the Carfax?
Carfax. Up here they call them car proofs. I know.
It's got to be a few differences.
Yeah, it's always the Canadian stuff, eh? Always the Canadian stuff where we are, doing the weird things. But nonetheless, so what did this guy get? What was his punishment?
Well, this just happened Saturday, so he was probably issued a ticket, but there was no punishment or arrest.
Oh, really? How much was he doing?
Didn't say. Just said he was speeding. Driving a car like that, I would imagine...
Oh, you have to.
You're not doing 55.
Yeah, you definitely have to. You're going at least 40 above the speed limit at all times in a car like that.
Yeah, you are. I mean, what's the top speed on one of those things? Like 150, 160?
What kind of car is it? Let's find out.
McLaren.
What kind of McLaren?
720, yes.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure the S stands for speed.
Yeah, well, they're going for, here it is, $300,000 sports car, a day after it was purchased. Oh my goodness. You poor soul. That's a nice car, man. That's a nice car. Holy cow, did he ever total it? He's lucky to survive. I mean, McLaren versus tree. McLaren versus tree never is going to... There's no repairing that. There is no Carfax on that, man. There is no Carfax on that.
Well, scrap metal down here is about $60 a ton.
Yeah, well, right now, I mean, considering how light, I don't think there's any metal on that, is there? Maybe the chassis, that's about it.
Chassis engine.
My goodness, this car, I'm surprised it isn't ripped in two. That is terrible.
See, I think that was more than 40 over the speed limit.
That is, and considering you're on a small, I mean, looking at this photo that I found online, that's not a very thick 2-lane road. You know?
You'd think he'd take it out on the expressway.
Yes.
That's where I'd go.
I agree with you, man. I totally agree with you. Let's move on to story number 2.
Yeah, this one's a little bit more serious. It involves Facebook and their privacy laws as they pertain to Europe. The family of a young girl sued Facebook looking to have access to her account. She was killed in a train accident in 2012, and they wanted access to her Facebook pages so that they could determine if she had talked about suicide or anything like that prior to this accident. And Facebook denied them, based on their rules are you can have an account memorialized where it's permanently locked. And so the family sued them looking to have access to this stuff, and Facebook lost. So this potentially puts any social media or any Facebook kind of material in the realm of things like personal diaries or letters where it can be handed down or passed on to people, and they can then have access to the account or the material, which goes totally against what Facebook has set up and has indicated in their privacy rules. But with this ruling, it probably won't affect the Americas much, but it could have a big effect on European laws and how data and social media posts are treated in Europe.
You know what, I almost agree with these parents in the lawsuits. I know you may not, but I actually do. Because if I found out, okay, like my daughter, God, I love her, but she has some problems. She suffers from depression and very, very bad anxiety. She also has extreme anxiety attacks if she is in public. It keeps her from working. Like, it is serious stuff. And if she ever had those dark thoughts where she followed through, I would want to know what was on her Facebook. I would want to know what leads up to that.
I agree with you. And I thought that Facebook had set up something where you could designate, it was like a legacy account where you could designate somebody that would have access to your page after you passed on.
Do they have that set up?
Apparently the parents didn't have that set up. It may not be something that's available in Europe, but I know that I don't know if it's available here. I've never set it up on my account, but I know that there was the talk of having essentially somebody who could manage your account to notify people, that kind of thing, after you passed away.
My goodness. I think we should all have that, except maybe... No, that's a bad idea. I don't want anybody having access to my accounts. I really don't.
I'm afraid to set it up because I'm horribly superstitious.
Me too. Just let it die with me. Eventually it'll go as an inactive account and just deleted.
Though there is some validity to the idea of having a legacy person designated or something like that, because I did have a situation where I sent a friend request to somebody after they had passed on, and I had no idea. And the account just sat there stagnant for about 2-3 years.
Let me ask you this. I got to tell you, I had this weird thing happen on the weekend. My hometown, okay, when I grew up, it was pretty small. Like it was, 25, 30,000 people. And still in that type of community, majority of people were farmers, and it was still small enough where everybody knew everybody. And for some reason, I never do this, and I actually went into the obituaries. And I saw 2 people that I knew. One guy I played hockey with, and this lady who I went to grade 5 and 6 with her, and I had the biggest crush on her. She was the second girl crush I ever had. I don't know what to think about that, man. I don't know what to think about that.
I've had similar things happen a couple of times, and it's, excuse me, it's kind of weird to find out that way.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I guess you have to find out some way, at least if you're looking for somebody that you've lost contact with.
Well, I'm just thinking, am I at that age now at 45 where I got to start monitoring the obits? I don't want to be doing that.
That's one step away from clipping out news articles and putting them in a scrapbook.
Yeah, the next thing I'll be doing is couponing. No, hell with it. I'm not going back to the obits. No, I'm just drawing a line right there. Line is drawn in the sand. Still weird, though. Still
it is
weird.
But, as you get older, you have to face it.
I know. Don't have to like it. Don't have to like it. But nonetheless, we got time for one more, my friend. We got a pretty busy thought of the day today.
Okay, well, the Houston-based company Mattress Firm, they are searching for snooze turns. I think I may apply for this.
How much are they paying?
It's an internship, so probably nothing, but it does have some great benefits in that you basically just have to sleep, try out different mattresses, try out different positions, and post it on social media.
Oh, don't even bring up mattresses right now, man. I'm sensitive to that right now.
I was thinking of you when I saw this, and I thought, what a better story. I mean, I may apply for this. I like to nap.
Well, let me tell our audience the story of what happens. I think every teenager goes through this where they decide that they don't need bed sheets or pillow covers or anything like that. So my beautiful stepdaughter, she went away. So old stepdaddy Dave decided to go into the hoarder's room and clean it out. And I figured, you know what? I'm just going to wash everything down. I'm going to be that guy. All right. Clean up the garbage. And so I ripped the bed apart. And this beautiful mattress, because I bought that bed. I know how much I paid for it, which was a lot. The entire pillow on top, you know how the mattresses have that pillow, Everett?
Yeah.
It is dirt brown. And I just about vomited.
Well, my kids went through the same thing.
Because you know what? It's weird because she is such a clean freak. Okay? Everywhere around the house, like she's always looking pretty, she's always looking dapper, very into her looks and making sure that everything is just looking right. I mean, she's addicted to those, those tape rings that you take the dog hair off with. Okay? And then I go into the room. And it is like, I think A&E could have done a special on hoarders in there. It was just disgusting.
Hey, now.
No, it was.
That's family.
It is. It totally is. But I hauled out 5 bags, okay? Not the big black bags, okay? But like the kitchen size bags of garbage and 4 pizza boxes.
Pizza.
Yeah. She didn't even offer me any. That's what I'm more pissed off at. But nonetheless, I tell you, I got one of them, those upholstery cleaners. It's not fun today, man. Not fun trying to scrub that mattress.
Well, you're only, about 36 hours away from chainsaw time?
Well, I may chainsaw the mattress. I may, if I can't get it clean. But I love her. She's an A student. She does very well in school, very well with everything, and, helps old Dave around quite a bit. So I got to cut her some slack. But nonetheless, she's going to have an extremely tidy room when she gets home.
I'm sure she'll appreciate that.
I hope so. I hope it's not one of those incidents when she gets home next month where it's like, what the hell did you do to my room? Why did you go in my room? Nobody's supposed to go in my room. You know how teenagers can be. I hope it's not like that
way.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. A-hole Skeptic showing up late in Twitter, the Twitterverse today. I know.
That's a little rude.
Well, it's Monday. I mean, you expect your snark from Mr. Skeptic, and you don't get it. And for those of you who are like, who the hell is Mr. Skeptic? You got to go to hashtag Spaced Out Radio. It's the highest quality snark imaginable by this man. And he shows up late. Like, I need that. I need that fix.
He takes his craft seriously.
He does. He absolutely does. It's a show inside a show. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. Sometimes I get so addicted to looking at some of the stuff on Twitter, I stop paying attention to the show.
Oh, I can't do that. I wish. He says, dock my paycheck. That's quality snark right there. Quality snark. Good to see you, my friend. Actually, Twitter's been pretty damn good tonight. Pretty damn good. Let's get to the thought of the day. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where during the day we put a Facebook question on our Facebook page and on our Twitter, and then we ask for your responses, which we read live on the air because we love the audience participation around here. So today's Thought of the Dave is, what do you feel hypnotherapists can or cannot help alien abductees recover memories? Or why do you feel? Boy, I butchered my own question. Why do you feel hypnotherapists can or cannot help alien abductees recover memories? So we got a plethora of responses today. Absolute plethora. Let's start off on Twitter, shall we? Have you ready?
I'm ready.
Oscar says, what if the memory is so deep it takes a trigger word to refresh the memory of 10 to 20 years ago? The regressionist just hits on key words. Very interesting. Oscar also says, when I was a child, I had a recurring dream where God was dragging me by the back of my collar through what seemed endless times. Other stuff, too, so it makes me wonder if it was aliens. Not sure of that, or if it was just a nightmare. I'm not getting to the Bard of the Dave by Barther L. Because they are all unwilling. Yeah, no, I'm not even going there. Barther, thank you for the response. I appreciate that. This is why I should never read these cold. Never read these cold.
That's the only way you should read them.
Oh, it gets dangerous when Bart L is involved in them. That's for sure. All right, let's move over to Facebook here. Chris says, hypnosis can be directed. How do you know it isn't generating a false memory? We don't know. But that's why, you should go to a professional clinician like Lesley Mitchell-Clarke rather than just every demonologist who has now figured that demonology is passé and has gone over to the hypnotherapy. That's the reality of it. Catherine, implanted suggestions or leading to possible outcomes that cannot be verified. I don't think she's a fan of it. Charles says, from my own personal experience, religious auditing is better as this did not hypnotize me. I recalled what I recalled, and there was never any suggestions nor inserted data. That's really cool. That led to a long discussion on Facebook that I'm not getting into. Chuck stated, the right ones can. The wrong ones can lead them down the garden path to whatever they want to hear. And that's the danger of it. People, have to be understanding of what they are wanting for help. Wouldn't you say, Everett?
I agree. I think there's a fine line between suggestion and pulling something out that was a memory. And I think it's a really hard line to walk. So it has to be somebody who really knows what they're doing.
I absolutely agree with that. Would you go to a hypnotherapist? Have you ever?
I never have, but I'd like to be hypnotized and have a subliminal or a hypnotic suggestion implanted.
Yes.
I would love to like crow or cluck like a chicken every time I see bacon or something like that, just to see if it can be done.
That would be kind of cool. That would be kind of cool. That would be very cool. Oh, let's see here. Let's get to another one here, shall we? Let's get to October Rain. She's actually going to be a guest in August. Paranormal researcher. She says, I think people suppress what's traumatic to them to go about their lives as best as possible and not fully deal with what's there under the surface. So being able to open up those areas in a different state could reveal all they blocked out, but then they're forced to revive what has happened. I think they could help, but only if that person wants to get to what lies buried deep inside, per se. Good call. Good call. Eugene Braxton, former guest on this show. We got to bring him back on. I like Eugene.
Yeah, we do.
He says, the persistently lost or purposely erased memory issues are at the core of both NDE and UFO abductions, and we lose most of the substance of the experience in both NDEs and alien abductions, and this is purposely done. Memory, or lack of it, is the number one reason we really know hardly anything of value or with these and other esoteric experiences. Now that makes me wonder if they're erasing the memories on purpose, and for why. Interesting.
That just gives you something to think about.
That is ponderous. Way too deep at this time of night. Way too deep at this time of night. Kevin, from the testimonies I have reviewed, it is the smaller percentage of abductions in which the abductee is immediately aware of what occurred and in detail. It usually takes a regression therapy, lengthy counseling, and something that acts as a catalyst to bring the repressed memories to the surface. Only an unbiased hypnosis session that allows the client to volunteer the information about the abduction can ever provide useful information. Once a suggestion of aliens, abductions, or anything of that topic is made to the client, their testimony from there is out and void, since it is already contaminated. Very good. I agree with that one. We're going to give that one a thumbs up right there. Crystal says, I think hypnosis is a huge benefit. I've done CBT before. I can meditate like no other two now. See, I can't do the meditation. My mind is racing way too fast for that. Way too fast. Can you meditate, Everett?
Not really. I've tried, but usually I'm going in too many different directions to be able to calm myself like that.
So am I. I just don't get it. Don't know if I want to get it. It seems way too complicated. In that 5 minutes of my day, I'm already stressing out about finding 5 minutes every day. So it doesn't work for me. Does not work for me. I'm just going to leave that at the side, the whole thing. But let me see. Maybe I skipped over some. I don't recall here. I really don't recall.
You know what, though? Aren't memories so fragile to begin with and so easily manipulated anyway that that could potentially be a little bit dangerous? I mean, I have a memory that I know is absolutely false. It is not possible that this happened, but
is it Mandela effect?
No. I've like confused or mashed two separate instances together and created one memory that doesn't make any sense. But my head tells me that it's a real memory. The only reason I know that it can't be a real memory is because it's not possible.
Very weird. Very weird. Let us ponder that tonight, my friends. Everthemer, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio with The Encounter. Where can people find The Encounter for right now?
People can find The Encounter on Facebook at facebook.com/SOR The Encounter Online.
Awesome. Appreciate you taking the time. Also, big thank you to Lesley Mitchell-Clarke for coming on in to talk about hypnotherapy and how it helps people when it comes to alien contact and abduction. If you have an experience, just go find her on my Facebook page, Lesley Mitchell-Clarke, or Google her name, and it will pull up her website. She's got about 6 websites, so I'm not going to mention them all. Just Google her, Lesley Mitchell-Clarke. Tomorrow night on the program, we have author Robert Snow, who spent 38 years as a police officer, but he's now an author, joining us to talk about past lives, reincarnation, and so much more, and his investigation into this strangeness. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. A huge thank you to everybody on Spreaker tonight. Saw some familiar faces we hadn't seen in a while. Thank you for stopping on by. Everyone on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio, and to the Veterans Club, the SOR Space Travelers on Facebook. Thanks for sharing the show. Thanks for telling your friends, doing your part to make us bigger and better every single night, because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Have a good night. See you later.
We're watching.